Okay.
So,
Okay.
Especially for the people who are joining us online, particularly also those who are joining us here. If you are doing this short course, which is called Introduction, Becoming a Researcher, the Introduction to Postgraduate Studies, as an accredited course, meaning your department has sent you here to attend the course as a compulsory attendance for accreditation, which you will receive a certificate after completion. Please make sure that you try by all means to be here physically. I have received some apologies for those who would like to attend on Zoom because of specific reasons. Please, when you send me those emails, especially if you are doing this course on an accredited basis, also email the same confirmation or conversation or message to your postgraduate coordinator or lecturer that is responsible for your accreditation in this course. I've said a lot of things, and some of you are seeing me for the very first time. My name is Asi Pemkalisa. So I am the woman or the person that has been sending you a lot of emails and this is going to be our relationship moving forward. I am with the Center for Postgraduate Studies. I'm a lecturer there. I work with two other wonderful women. One of them was just here, Uspoka Zimagai. She's the administrator at the center. And Professor Suma Kenna, who is a director as well as a global researcher on higher education, who cannot be here with us today but has crafted this wonderful course, as well as the conceptual idea of what the course should look like. Even the poster here was a design, which she did because she's a superwoman and a wonderful woman. She did it in hospital, and she was able to do all of that. So the Center for Postgraduate Studies is actually managed by 3 people and 3 women specifically. Very important to mention 3 women. So yeah, we're here today to discuss. I said yesterday we'll be discussing today the elephant in the room, which is procrastination. So the topic is living in an era of Instagram and Netflix, managing imposter syndrome and procrastination. So this conversation today is not a presentation where the 2 speakers will be telling you how to manage your time. This is going to be an honest conversation between them and yourselves and myself in terms of how we deal with imposter syndrome and procrastination. Very important to note, I am also just like you guys, so I'm also a student in my other life. I am doing my PhD together with Kelly. And as we are going to be having this honest conversation, I am part of the people that fly on Instagram. I'm like an Instagram influencer. And I know why I use it, when I use it. It's Netflix, but that does not mean I know how to manage my usage as well. So it's going to be a learning process for me too. So today with us, we have 2 wonderful scholars, researchers, 2 wonderful people that decided, you know what, a degree, honors, and masters is not enough. Let me go for my PhD, ambitious 2 young people. One of them here is Kelly Solomon, who is a lecturer and a doctoral student in Shuttle. She completed her master's in anthropology at Rhodes University, and since has developed a keen interest in student development and student experience, particularly in relation to the humanities. On the other side, we've got Miracle also, who is a doctoral student at the Institute for Water Research at Rhodes University. He holds an MSc in ecology and environmental biology and a BS honors in animal and environmental biology. Miracle is motivated by man's dependence on the environment for survival and how much harm is continuously done to natural systems by human activities. Thus, his doctoral research focuses on the overarching effects of urbanization on the water quality and ecological integrity of South Africa's riverine resources and the resulting impact on aquatic organisms, with the goal of contributing to existing literature and providing evidence-based recommendations that influence policy and ensure the sustainable utilization of crucial resources. He is a member of some notable professional organizations, including the Southern African Society of Aquatic Scientists and the Society for Freshwater Sciences. Miracle is active in the environmental education and awareness space and has driven several sensitization programs for high school kids and adults. He is a member of a non-profit organization where he contributes his quota to community development. He loves playing soccer, reading, and listening to music. A man of many hats, Miracle. conversation. One of the key things that we do not do or we fail to do as postgraduate studies is self-check. Self-check in terms of how we are progressing in our postgraduate research, how we are balancing our lives, and how much time do we spend in things that are not adding to what we are currently envisioning or the goal, and how much time we need to dedicate into social activities, social media, as well as Netflix. Netflix is very good, especially Netflix and chill. Okay, so every student gets nervous before they begin something new. It could be a new city, it could be a new course, it could be a completely a new journey. So the anxiety of knowing you've got your place to study but not knowing you are good enough is very common. Academic procrastination in postgraduates is a common thing and has a negative impact on our mental health. It is therefore important for us to discuss some tips for coping with imposter syndrome and procrastination as a postgraduate student. Unfortunately, for the longest time I've been a student, you never really get rid of procrastination, but you keep it in check. So you manage it, including imposter syndrome. That does not mean there's no hope to kill those two. So today's reflection will focus on academic self-efficacy and self-control, particularly when it comes to procrastination. But just before, moving the conversation, it's going to be a light conversation, honest conversation, unfiltered. So just before we move on, I would like to urge all of you guys to please make sure that you sign the register. So the registers are scanned back to your departments, especially those doing these courses and accredited. And also, we keep the registers to check the students that have been participating so that we also know who is participating and what do you need from us and all that, because you'll be doing like evaluations at the end of the course itself. The other announcements I'll just say after we're done with our discussion. But procrastination can mean so many things for so many people. Now, Kelly, what would you say procrastination looks like? It could be on anything, what procrastination means to you, as well as procrastination in your own studies if you do procrastinate.
Thanks, Asibe. For me, procrastination is mainly just a state of avoidance. You're just avoiding something that you are also dreading doing. I think it's deeply related to fear, and I think it does link with this idea of imposter syndrome quite a lot. I will mindlessly procrastinate, especially when I have a lot to do or I have something very important to do. Like if my supervisor is waiting for something, that's the exact day I will decide to rewatch New Girl and I will binge watch all the seasons. So for me, procrastination looks like binge watching, scrolling mindlessly on TikTok. Um, Starting text conversations with someone that I blue ticked 4 days ago just to get it going again, only to blue tick them maybe 2 hours later. But yeah, I really do think it's deeply linked to fear because, especially when you're starting something new, like a new degree, you don't really know what's expected of you. So when you start the reading or the chapter or the piece of writing or the research or anything, sometimes you don't know where to start. So you try and delay that as much as possible. And then you fill it with all these things that bring you some kind of joy. But besides the joy, I think it just lets you switch your mind off for a while. And I think that's a lot of the time when you're doing a postgrad, you just need your mind to be quiet. Because if you're like me, your mind is consistently telling you, you can't do this is too hard, why are you doing your PhD, all that kind of things. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you want me to pause?
You want to write something, just do something else. Maybe check on your mom, check on your parents. I mean, you're far from home. Yeah, so you go ahead doing all of the things. You call your mom, talk for 5 hours. You're relieving yourself of stress, chatting with your friends, just going out, buying some food, and then you forget about the 5 papers that you wanted to read. You forget about the one paragraph you told yourself, okay, today I'm setting a goal, I'm going to write just one paragraph. And then you say, oh well, today it's over, maybe we'll do it tomorrow. That's how you find yourself pushing things that you're supposed to do to the next day and to the next day to the next day. I mean, we do it as students, it's part of our lifestyle from high school. They give you an assignment to do and you just want to play. It's still with us as adults. You want to play, you want to do other stuff, and then you forget about the assignment only to try to rush through it in the morning when you remember, oh, I got an assignment, I have to submit, stuff like that. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much what procrastination is to me. Just avoiding the main things you're supposed to do and doing other things that you consider more important at that moment. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Miracle. So for me, procrastination comes in a disguise of self-care. So I procrastinate using self-care, right? And I would like to dwell much on it, but I think many of you get it. When you do things that you have to do, but not at this time. So when I'm supposed to write, I would do self-care of cleaning my house, putting on some face mask, listening to music, drink a glass of wine, 2, 3. By the fourth glass, there's no writing I'm going to do. So that is what procrastination is, and that is how it looks like in my life. But remember, as I said, procrastination differs, and how it looks like differs in your life. So let's hear from you guys. Also, those online will be reading your comments as well. What is procrastination in your life, and how does it look like? You cannot tell me you don't procrastinate, guys. There's no way. Yesterday we were discussing 5 characteristics of being a good postgraduate scholar, and one of them was discipline. And a lot of people, as they were voting about those characteristics, discipline was faded, meaning less people actually thought a postgraduate scholar must be disciplined. So remember, for us to have this good conversation, honest conversation, we need to be interactive. So anyone would like to share what procrastination looks like in their life?
I see, maybe if I could just hop on to what Mariko was saying. Because you were talking a lot about these big tasks that you don't do them. I think that's a big part of why we procrastinate as well. I think sometimes it's linked to setting unrealistic goals for yourself. So you're like, today I'm going to read 5 papers and write my whole theory chapter. That's not possible. But because you set such a big task, it feels like you can't do it. So you do something else to avoid it. So instead, set much smaller tasks. Maybe say, in the next hour I'm going to read these 3 paragraphs, because then it feels a lot more doable when you want to do it. And you comment on self-care 100%. I also want to say, I think sometimes we misunderstand what self-care is. We think self-care is that face mask, that glass of wine. the I work hard stuff. But self-care is actually setting up structures in your life that's going to allow you to be your best self. So like having a study plan, making sure you live a balanced life. So shifting that perception of what self-care looks like as well.
No, thank you very much, Kelly. You know, the other question that I was going to follow up with, which also touches into what you already spoke about, is what then is procrastination in postgraduate studies? And you mentioned a key, very important part of setting unrealistic goals, that when you look at them and what you were supposed to cover, it actually overwhelms you, you know? And it's quite very important to distinguish between aiming high so that you fall in the stars, or aiming high to overwhelm yourself. And that causes so much anxiety. One of the other ways that perhaps postgraduate students actually procrastinate is sleeping. We all know that I usually say that sometimes we romanticize hard work to such a point where we think sleep is not important, but at the same time we also use sleep to avoid the things that we need to do. It is very important to understand when you are oversleeping. There's a thing called oversleeping. And I know what I'm saying because sometimes I get, Kelly, this overwhelming urge to get home and just sleep. It kind of feels like everything else after I've done that power nap will make sense. But 70% of the times, the power nap ends up being 4 hours. And when I wake up, I completely do not know what my name is. That's how good that power nap is. And after a power nap, I usually don't get really productive. I sit in bed and think again about the things that I thought I was escaping by taking that power nap. So, and I know that because a postgraduate journey can sometimes be lonely, getting home and sleeping, no one will hold you accountable for that. In fact, when you're a postgraduate student and you see you sleeping, we will clap, because that is a good thing, because there's this notion and understanding that as a postgraduate student, you don't sleep. You need to sit in your desk, you need to sit and focus on your computer and stuff like that. But if there's anyone who'd like to share in terms of how procrastination looks like in their postgraduate studies, or how it looked like, because maybe people don't want to talk simply because I'm saying looks like, so that means they're now reflecting on the things that are happening. There's hope that you've conquered it. So how did it look like when it happened in your postgraduate studies? Do we have any takers online? We have one from Desiree saying, as she mentioned, doing less important or urgent tasks such as housework or researching tangential topics and getting sidetracked. Can I also reflect on some of the ways that postgraduates procrastinate is pretending you're doing the research without actually doing the research. Downloading 20 articles, whereas you know you're not going to read them. Reading one article, understanding it fully, closing the laptop and feel like I've done the work. It's okay to actually take time in your postgraduate studies, dedicating that time to your reading era. And in most cases for PhD, it's your first year. So those first months where you read because you're trying to make sense of the topic you've chosen, you're trying to make sense of the field, that is really okay. But how are you reading? Do you have a reading journal that you keep these citations? I've read so many articles that I have even forgotten, but now they might be useful in the chapter that I'm in, but because I was just reading to be a good postgraduate student, I forgot completely about them. The other way is reading for other people. When we speak about Netflix, where Kelly, you take a picture of the book that you are reading, whereas you're not actually reading it. We've seen that culture on Twitter, where a lot of academics will take pictures of multiple books and articles they have. I kid you not, that is another way of procrastination. That is another way of trying to feed imposter syndrome by getting fans to tell you you're doing a great job. This is why we have so many high numbers. I said this is going to be an honest conversation and I'm within the conversation. But this is why, Kelly, we have so many high numbers of postgraduate students who have been registered for 10 years. Because it feels nice to be called a PhD candidate for a while. But to be honest, if you are not writing your PhD, you're not doing the PhD. So those are the honest conversations we need to have. Perhaps I am triggering some emotions, but no, I haven't been registered for 10 years. But yeah, moving forward, how do you then listen to yourself and recognize imposter syndrome or procrastination? What are some of the strategies, Miracle, that you impose to listen to yourself? When that thought is triggering, you just listen to yourself.
Okay, for me, whenever I find myself scrolling TikTok, Insta, just seeing nice things, getting from one topic to another, I try to remind myself of my priorities. I usually set goals for myself. For example, in fact, when you're getting into your research, getting into conversations with your supervisor about your research topic, timeline, you have to develop a study plan. So that's one of the things that keeps you in check. So if you say you're going to do so and so within a space of time, definitely you can spill over. I did spill over sometimes. I said I'll be done with the lab work. I was still in the lab for like 2 more weeks. Of course, I was watching movies. So yeah, I mean, when you get to that point of putting yourself in front of your goals and you see yourself, am I really acting in line with my goals? Am I really doing what is going to make me accomplish this goal? You said you would write a paragraph, maybe just one paragraph, 2, 3 lines, and you downloaded some materials, some articles for that, say 5 articles. You read one and you're feeling like you've accomplished everything, but that paragraph, you've only put one statement there. That's not you meeting your goals. So for me, I like to just stay at the laptop, my computer, and try to finish what I said I would finish. So that's just how it goes. Most of the time, I don't do that. You know, I mean, when you watch one video on TikTok, you have a lot of trending topics and headings, talking about the passing of someone influential, talking about everybody investigating and all that. I mean, you get carried away from time to time, but just you being able to put yourself in front of your goals, that's what brings you back, basically. So when I look at myself today, I've spent 4 hours scrolling TikTok. I've not done anything concerning my PhD. Then the fear starts to come in. You start to feel scared that if I continue watching these videos and all these things, I really won't get to what I want to get to, really. So that's just what brings me back, basically.
Thank you very much, Miracle. Okay.
I've really been beefing the term imposter syndrome lately. I just think that the way we say it, imposter syndrome, it places the person at the center as if there's something fundamentally wrong with them. But actually, if we take a step back, it's more of a comment of the space that you occupy that makes you feel like you don't belong. And I mean, a lot of it is related to systemic issues, which we've discussed in length in academia. But I think the culture of academia itself lends people to feel like it's a space that they have to earn. So academia is such a weird space. It's like, it makes you feel like you have to earn your stripes, to earn your badges. So when you have honors, you have to now push for masters. When you have masters, you have to now push for PhD. And it's like all these stripes, that's the only way you're going to validate yourself in this space. That is absolutely not true. You are an academic the minute you set foot in this institution, whichever institution you studied at. And I think for me, when grappling with my own issues of imposter syndrome, I have to remind myself that I don't have to earn my space here. I'm already here. I already occupy it. And what I'm doing through my studies is then going to contribute to the space in some shape or form. And to remove this idea of what an academic should look like, what a postgraduate student should look like. They don't look like anything. They look like how you look because you're a postgraduate student. So I think, and even when we use the term imposter syndrome, it's very particular kinds of people who associate with that. I think that in itself is quite a huge comment on how that term has been used, and I just think we better.
Can you please make sure that your mics are off?
Is it fine? Is it fine? Yeah. Yeah. Hello? So, yeah, I think it's a comment more on the space that we're in. It's weird, it's uncomfortable, it makes you feel like, a lot of the time it makes you feel like you don't belong in it. But I think when it comes to respond to your question, how do I deal with it? It's to remind myself that I belong in a space by simple fact that I'm here and I'm in it. And that in itself means I have something to say, I have something to contribute. I don't have to keep earning my space. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Would you like to add something?
Yeah, I'd like to add something when it comes to imposter syndrome. So basically, sometimes as students, we oftentimes feel that we don't belong where we are right now. We feel like I only got into this program because maybe the admin made a mistake and they just slipped my name in. That's why I'm here. You don't feel like you're good enough to be there. You don't feel like you actually merit what it takes to be a postgrad. So that's one of the ways in which imposter syndrome affects us, and then you start to feel this doubt in yourself. Am I going to be able to actually produce anything from this PhD? Am I going to be able to produce anything in my master's? Am I actually capable of thinking, critical thinking? Am I actually capable of putting something out there in the existing literature? You begin to doubt yourself. And how I tend to deal with that is just to remind myself that I'm here for a reason. There have been challenges in the past in terms of academic challenges, reading, studying, having to sit down for hours and study. I mean, you scaled that, so you passed high school, did your honors, masters, and now at the level of PhD. You can't begin to doubt yourself now. You're too far ahead to begin to doubt yourself because you have a track record of things you've already accomplished. So that's one of the things to put in mind when it comes to handling imposter syndrome.
No, that's very important. You know, earlier on you spoke about the other ways that you listen to yourself is to track the time that you have been spending and what you have been spending that time on. And Kelly spoke about the reminder of the sense of belonging, even though most of us know that the academic space wasn't built with us in mind, but you are here, you belong here, you should stay here. The other thing that we don't often speak about in the academic space is how exhausting the academic performance or performativity is. And I know in so many other spaces, calibers, fields, there is a certain performance that a post-colonial scholar should look like, a decolonial scholar should look like, African feminist scholar should look like. There is that performance which comes with exhaustion. And it comes with a lot of imposter syndrome, because once you feel like you're not performing the research that you are doing in terms of how you look like, in terms of how you present yourself, then you're not doing enough. There's also something, so yesterday I had a conversation with one of my mentees who happened to come from the community that I come from. So before her, I was the only PhD scholar in my community, and now she started her PhD as well. We're from the same small town. And she was saying to me yesterday, she woke up feeling, what is the purpose of all this? If she doesn't have a stable job, she has a master's, but she doesn't have a stable job, she doesn't have funding for PhD, so why is she here? What is the purpose of this? And when I spoke to her, I told her that, sometimes you need to remind yourself of what motivated you to go post-undergrad. And I know for some people, it was not a choice, it was not an option, because there are no jobs. So you definitely did your honors, and after that you found funding, and now maybe you like what you're doing, or maybe not. But for other people, it was that deliberate choice of wanting to be part of the community that creates knowledge, to be part of the community that cement themselves, archive themselves in the history. And that sometimes is people's motivation, and reminding yourself in terms of why you started is very important. But also something that I didn't actually check, Kelly, is that actually having a panel of PhD candidates shows that even though you are in honors and you're dealing with this, if you don't know how to manage it in PhD level, you'll still be dealing with it and not knowing how to manage it. And this is why a lot of PhD students are depressed, because we do not deal or manage the things that we are going through. We keep the performance, we keep performing, we keep wearing different face masks up until the world crumbles and you can't move, and there's nothing that you can do when that happens. So that is very important, to listen to yourself. The listening to yourself in a one word is being accountable to yourself throughout your research team. The other thing that puts, I call this, a mind stroke. When your mind is just, it's called brain freeze sometimes, when you are just on autopilot mode in your postgraduate studies. One of the triggers of that is the understanding and the purpose of what failure is, the understanding and the purpose of what feedback is, as well as the difference between failure and feedback. Or this means I have failed, or this is just feedback that I am doing something right and I'm in the right track. And I'd like us to process the meaning of failure, Kay. The meaning of failure in this academic journey, and how you take feedback from your supervision team, how you process feedback from your supervision team.
I think that's actually the hardest part, is the feedback. You'll write that chapter, you'll hand it in, you'll be like, yes, chapter's done, and then you get feedback, LOL, nope, let's start again. It's really hard because as much as it's your studies, it's supposed to be outside of you somewhat, it's deeply personal. At some point you start to associate your value as a person to what you're able to produce. I don't know if that's for everyone, but that's what happens with me. My value is attached to success, how well I can do academically. So when I see I'm not hitting the mark I'm supposed to, it feels deeply personal. And I'll give a little story. I was working on my proposal probably for a good 2 years. Because of the program I was on, I needed to submit by the end of the second year, otherwise I lose my funding. But no, I had to submit before I registered again, so before, like, say, Feb the next year. By October, my two supervisors sat me down and they said, your proposal is not at PhD level at all. And basically they were saying you have to start from scratch. In that moment I was like, I've failed at a PhD student, at being a PhD student. I actually haven't even started it. I can't even get through the proposal. How am I supposed to do an entire thesis? It felt absolutely impossible. But looking back, if I had just listened to their feedback sooner, I don't think I would have been in that position, because I'm absolutely capable of doing it. It's just I wasn't listening. I was too focused on taking things personally and just trying to make it good enough to what I thought that they wanted, instead of taking the time to actually understand what is required of me. Long story short, I was able to do it and submit by the Feb after, through lots of tears and tantrums, but it happened. I don't recommend that to a friend at all. But it's to recognize that the feedback really is for your development. It's not to personally attack you, it's not to belittle you. But I think there's also a comment in, if your supervisor is giving you feedback in a tone that does not sit well with you, and I mean, you had the conversation yesterday about relationships, you have to communicate that. Because otherwise you're going to spend the next, 2 to 7 years just being triggered every single time you get feedback. And then that's going to feed into procrastination, because you're going to pick it up, you're going to get so angry at it, you're not even going to want to deal with it. It's going to feel personal, you're going to question it. It's like this whole cycle. So what I found really helps with feedback is to read the feedback and then have a meeting with my supervisor, like, straight after. Because when she speaks, I'm like, oh, I heard this in such an aggressive tone, but she's actually very chilled. You don't realize just how much your own mind will, like, times what they say behind it, for sure. So feedback it's the only development really that we get directly in relation to our research. That's the only comment, that's the only thing that's really going to help you grow specifically to your research, specifically to your thesis. So no matter how difficult it is, you have to tackle it head on. But failure, as you were mentioning, Asipa, is, and the weird thing is, it's not failure. You're not failing anything. With any studies, uncertainty it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. But that's how you grow as a student. But we interpret that uncertainty with failure, which is dangerous. But it's a very difficult thing to try and navigate. But as long as you put that feeling of failure in context and really interrogate, so doing any studies is just like 2 years of just talking to yourself for days. Like, you'll just chat with yourself all the time, but it's necessary. You have to put things in context.
Just before Miracle, to see if we have any contributions from the floor. Okay. I can't really see it. This thing of life. So my skin is allergic to metal, so wearing these glasses is actually causing me these spots. Okay. Please say your name and the department that you come from. Sorry. You can say your nickname. We're not going to stalk your Insta.
No, I'm kidding. My name is Wonga, and I come from the philosophy department. I have a question for Kelly. So when she was discussing, discussing the whole concept of imposter syndrome, which I'm not sure if I understand correctly. But she was talking about that lack of sense of belonging, which comes from one's expectations of themselves. So that because I'm at this part of my studies, I should be doing ABC, but I'm not really capable of doing ABC at this point. So do I really belong? So I want to understand the important, how one strikes a balance in that, because it looks like it has a bad as well as a good aspect, because it somewhat imitates what we're doing now. So just yesterday, we were talking about certain qualities that a researcher should have. The whole concept was becoming a researcher. What we think and what is put on literature of these characteristics. So you look at those and then see that, okay, and agree that these are the qualities that a researcher should have, and then realize that you actually lack quite a lot on those, and then start to get into that pinnacle again of feeling like you're incompetent in that sense. And so how does one then strike that balance to avoid the so-called imposter syndrome, but also put that progress to self-check themselves and ensure that there's a good progress going on? Thank you.
Um,
Greetings, everyone. I am Unjabu and I am a Nisha. I think this question goes to the house at large. I'm not sure if anyone has ever experienced this, but have you ever been in a situation where you were in an environment where you were literally the only female or the only black person within that environment? Because I remember having a session with one of my potential supervisors, and he said, "Yeah, no, not all girls get into this field," and already a bit of imposter syndrome. I felt a bit of it because it was just like, wow, okay, should I be here? I mean, sure, you're breaking boundaries and whatnot, but there's a sense of intimidation that I felt during that session. So how do you deal with being in an environment where you're like, I'm the minority or you're the only person in that space?
okay. Um,
I think I'll respond to the last question and I'll come back to yours. Just quite simply, I get to the example you gave now is exactly why I beefed the term imposter syndrome. Because it's not you, it's the environment. It's someone thinking that this space is a masculine space, but it's been created as such. And then they just keep enabling it, and then they bring it to you and make you feel like you're the problem. You're not the problem. So, but we're so used to internalizing that, like, oh, the only girl, the only black person in this room. So clearly, I'm the one that's the outsider here. No, the space has created outsiders for some reason. So it doesn't mean it's easy. It's hard. And I've been in that position myself many times. It's really hard, but it's to remind yourself, it's not me, it's the space. And this is exactly why I have to be in the space. So that other people can see me and go, oh my goodness, a black woman is a geographer? That is so awesome, I could do the same thing. So when we talk about taking up space, that's why. It's to break down how we construct spaces and the rules that come with it. But it's not easy. So that's why I always find it's good to find your own communities of practice who experience the same kinds of things to see how do they deal with it then. Because you come with a particular kind of knowledge and lived experience that none of your supervisors will ever understand. But in your field, it's necessary it's necessary to have different perspectives. So sometimes it's just about replying or like replaying that conversation in your head. And it sucks that you have to work extra hard to remind yourself that you belong in space. But for me, I mean, I don't have answers, but for me, that's something that else is that I'm here because I'm needed and also because I want to be here. That's the other thing. And sometimes you'll get feedback from other young Black academics who come to you and thank you for taking up space because now it makes me feel like I belong a little bit more. So just, if no one else is going to validate yourself in a space, validate it for yourself in whatever way it means that you can do. I don't know if you-
So I think as just before you respond to the second question, for such questions, I love using like relevant examples as well. And to answer your question and also to tell you the truth, perhaps you wouldn't want to hear, is that being the first is exhausting. It comes with a lot of expectation. It comes with a lot of waiting, and that actually triggers imposter syndrome and the feelings of inadequacy. And I'm saying this because I've also been the first to go to university, first to now soon to hold a PhD in the community, a first Black woman to do this, and that comes with a lot of exhaustion. But to add on what Kelly is saying, there's a way in which you switch that to be your motivation. So you switch that to be your motivation. I'm the first, let me be great. It does not mean that you're not going to go through anything else, or you're going to build a wall, a brick of walls, or a thick skin that you need to build. It just means you just need to show up and be your best. You prove to them that, okay, I'm the first Black woman, I will do it so that other Black women can enter the space. And what she was talking about of building communities, there are many first Black women who have experienced the spaces the same way that you're experiencing it. Find your community, because in a space like that, in a masculine space, the performance you put is putting your emotions last, because they'll say emotional Black woman. So once you do that, you need a community where you enter a room, you just cry. So it's nice to have those communities, and this is why we are standing today. I was once, in 2014, I did my first year at Nelson Mandela University. I sat at the back of a class of accounting, and I had a distinction for matric in accounting. I felt it dismally because the person that was teaching here didn't look like me. I didn't understand what they were saying. I came from a public school, so I failed all my classes in first year. Today I am standing here as a lecturer. That says a lot about being the first. So you need to find your spaces, in spaces where you get motivated to keep going, but also know when to be in your shield and actually take a break from that. So that is very important. Kelly will respond to the second question.
Yeah. Well, thank you for raising that. I hear what you're saying. It is a careful balance of feeling comfortable that you belong in a space, but also not getting too comfortable because you also want to be challenged because you need to grow. And like, if there's any time to grow, it's in your postgrad. But even beyond that, all academics, your supervisors, they are continuously growing. They should be. So it's about understanding your place, and part of the place is to be challenged in ways that will make you uncomfortable at the same time. But that challenge exists more intellectually. How to explain what I'm saying? But it's necessary to be challenged because you do want to grow as well. So it's to listen, and I just think you can sort of feel it when it's a comment on you as a person and when it's on you and your studies and growing about your feelings of belonging. And I think sometimes we think belonging means conforming. I don't necessarily think those two things go together. You can belong in a space, but absolutely still take up space in your way, and then be challenged in it as well.
So basically, you need to balance yourself, your life, like between your goals and what you want to do, just to make yourself feel like you're okay, self-care and all that. But then you have this at least qualities of being a researcher. And you know that if you're failing in maybe one or two of them, you need to get yourself to that position where you're actually thinking about your future. You're thinking about what you do, how what you do affects where you want to get to. So basically, you have to strike a balance really between self-care. You know when to rest, you know when to sleep, you know when to relax, and you know when you are over-relaxing. Yeah. So you go back to the list of qualities, you check yourself based on that list, and you go, okay, I need to work on this, I need to work on that, and I need to get to this level, I need to get to that level. It's just balance, basically. Balance yourself. That's it.
As we're looking for more hands to contribute to the conversation, I think what you also touched on in terms of the exercise that we did yesterday, many people are doing their masters and PhDs to be part of the academic community, right? And part of being an academic is also supervision. We saw a lot of supervisors yesterday actually agreeing that there is definitely no way that they can have all 5 characteristics, and that is okay. And the other thing that we need to understand is that characteristics fluctuate. You can be a good communicator to your friend and a terrible one to your partner. Is that so? You can be a good, what I was saying yesterday, I'm great at my work ethic when it comes to my work, my bread. Maybe I'm motivated by money, I don't know. But when it comes to research, the work ethic is edgy. And I'm a good researcher. In terms of time management, I said yesterday that I'm always on time. I respect time and I cut people off. I cut people who arrive late off. That's how much I respect time. And that means I'm organized, but I miss research deadlines. So it's quite okay to have the 5. Sometimes have you ever felt that adrenaline where you are just writing and producing? You have all the 5, you are accountable, you're waking up at 4, you're writing, but also there'll be those times affected by the external forces that Kelly was speaking about where you are producing nothing. And at that time you will feel like you don't belong, you will feel like, I shouldn't be doing masters, I'm not intelligent enough. And newsflash, doing postgrad, everyone that's doing postgrad, that doesn't mean you're intelligent, honestly. That intelligence ended in high school and secondary, the ones of awards. That's why in this classroom, you are all the same. All quantiles, whether you've come from quantile 1, quantile 2, you're all the same here. That means it's only hard work, not the intellect. The intellect contributes maybe 30%. It's all hard work in the contribution of time management, being organized, this disciplined, being accountable. That will make you a good postgraduate student. So each and every time when you reflect about the feelings of inadequacy, do not even put the feelings of I'm not an intellect enough. Worst of all, the articulation of English. I hate that so much. Where people feel like because they can't articulate themselves in the way that is fashionable as they speak English, that means they're not intelligent enough. Oh my word, we break it all the time and I feel proud each and every time I break English. So make sense of your research and continue, working through the journey. As Kelly was saying, there's nothing like failure, it's a process. Speaking about that, I just wanted your reflections, Kelly and Miracle, in terms of what are the importance of talking about your project to people?
Okay, just before we get into that, I think I haven't given my thoughts on failure and feedback. At the start of my PhD, my supervisor said something very, very important that's still really up to today. He said that when you get feedback, you don't take it personally. Don't take it like this is me that this feedback is talking about. No, the critique is on your work. It's not on you. It's not an attack on your person. It's an attack on your work, what you've produced. And that's what goes out there. When you send a paper for publication, they send you feedback based on your work. They don't know you, they don't see you. But oftentimes we tend to take it personally because we know the person we are interacting with. So imagine you send your article or your paper out blindly and you don't know who the person is. When you get the feedback, the person is critiquing what you've written, what is there on the paper, not you. It's not telling you you're stupid, you're not thinking properly, you missed a comma here, you missed a full stop there. No, not that. It's the work that you submitted. So you need to separate yourself from the work. It's not about you, it's about the work. So that's just it on feedback. And the question you asked about.
What are the importance of sharing your work with people?
Oh yeah, the importance of sharing your work. I'm going to bring back a memory from high school. You know, when you're preparing for exams, you don't start preparing from the first day of resumption. You start preparing immediately, tell your timetable is out for the exams. That's when you want to rush through everything and grab as much as you can into your memory. In fact, if you can get a memory card and insert it in your brain, you would gladly do that. So it's one of the things that has lived with us even up to the point of going into postgraduate. How do you separate that aspect of your life from right now? How do you get forward? Basically. So I'm trying to put everything together basically and yeah. Oh yeah. But I was talking about the high school thing to bring it back to this place because then in high school you're on your own, you're doing your own thing, you're isolated. Basically, you want to be the most intelligent in the class, you want to be the best, you want to outdo every other person, outwork every other person. But yeah, I mean, when you're interacting with people, you get to deal with imposter syndrome in the sense that you talk about your work often, and when you talk about your work often, you have more hand on that work. You know your work better. You know what your project is about better. Imagine you're just entering into the whole postgraduate sphere, and then you have a topic. Back then, if you ask me what is your topic, I'll just tell you it's about this, it's about that. I can't tell you what my topic is because it's not in my head yet. It wasn't in my head at that time. But now, when you ask me what's your topic about, I'll give you a full. You get tired. Yeah. So that's how you basically handle imposter syndrome. You talk to somebody, just ask how's your work going? You initiate conversations, they talk to you about their work, and then they ask you how's your work going. You tell them about your work, what's your work about, why is it important to you? What are you trying to solve? What are you investigating really? Why are you in this space? Why are you where you are right now? So when you do that, I believe you tend to remove the doubt you have because you've been talking about it for 30 minutes. It gives you that confidence that yes, if I go anywhere, I can talk about my work without any fear, basically, compared to when you were in high school or maybe undergrad. Yeah. I think that interaction, constant communication helps. And then for some people, I remember a colleague of mine was talking about having to share his work with other colleagues. It helps you it gives you an idea of where you want to go to, like the direction of your project. Research is very, very complex. Research is complex. You can't think of every possible thing at every possible time. So when you're interacting, you get some very important questions that will help shape your research. So it really helps to have a conversation about it.
Thank you so much, Miracle. We just ran out of time, and there is a class now at 2 p.m. in the venue. But thank you very much to Miracle and Kelly for joining us today. And thank you very much for everyone who joined us today. We will see you next week on Wednesday, where we will be discussing how to analyze and read a journal. So thank you very much. Do have a great Thursday further. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
I thought it's 2:30. Quarter past. I think